I've lived through coup attempts, I've lived through earthquakes and fires and floods, been in the military, traveled around the world, and then someone tells me, I have to save you. What?
Right.
It just, that's why it caught me when you said that whole section. It's like, yeah, I've gotten there, and it is such a slap in the face. Like, wait a minute, all the experiences for over half a century, lots of trials and tribulations, and I'm still going, and now, and you think you're going to save me. It just, it's aggravating, and then that separates men and women.
Yes.
It makes us more antagonistic. And how can you have a relationship, even whether it's a friendship or anything else? How do you have that relationship with people when you now have this big wall that's been put in front of you?
That's a big thing, especially if you watch stuff on social media, where there's a lot of antagonistic behavior between the sexes. In general, there's more antagonistic behavior. But if you look specifically at black men and black women, it is incredibly antagonistic. As soon as a guy or a girl does something wrong, it's like that's their nature. It's that level, it's that deep. It's not Tyrone did this or Keisha did that. This is their nature. This is what they do. Because for some of these young men, they grew up with the overbearing feminist mother.
Mm. Yeah.
And here they are on the dating world, and you sound just like your mama. And then here for the girls out here, they don't expect shit from this guy.
Yeah, because they've
Right.
been told not to
Right.
expect. Yeah.
And then they run into the bad guy, which, by the way, in the book, what I explain is like the father is like the compass in many ways. For the boys, it's like the purpose compass. But for girls, the father is like the compass as far as what type of man they should interact with, relationship wise. So if you grow up with a healthy father figure who is shows that a healthy relationship between a man and woman looks this particular way, you're more inclined to be attracted to that type of man. But if you grow up with none of that, well then you're just going to go after the shiniest whatever. And you're going to probably end up getting taken advantage by the bad guy that you're not supposed to go towards. And then you go after bad guy after bad guy after bad guy. Then it seems like this is just what men are. It's like, no, there are bad men and good men that are out there. And you have a hard time distinguishing between the two because you didn't have that as a you didn't
Foundation,
have that foundation. And that's why I say like that's like the core, that's the root of it. And then now when they branch out, they're adults and they're out in the mating world. The men have been dealing with single mothers who have been overbearing, who try to play the role as father and mother, and tell themselves, I'm the mother and the father.
Yeah.
And the girls have been dealing with men who've been missing and disappointment from men. So they don't like each other. But at the same time, they're human beings and they want to have sex, they want to have children. And, and most people want to date within their culture.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you doing? So the person that you can't stand is the person you're procreating with. It's psychologically messed up.
Yeah. And socially, we see it every day. It's true. And that's actually kind of part of what was being said in chapter 5, actually, which I was also reading through. And we covered a little bit of that. I believe it was chapter 15. And chapter 15 goes in a slightly different direction because you were talking about your relationship with God.
Yeah.
And that's also something that's kind of a taboo. You have a lot of taboos in this book that it deals with.
Yeah.
Men, their roles as fathers, women, the relationship with men and fathers, and relationship with God, an individual's relationship with God. Why did you think that was important for the book?
So you understand as well, I spent many years being agnostic. So for me to even acknowledge God within the book shows my progression towards having some sort of spiritual faith. Today, we're talking 4 years since I started writing that. Today, I'm a Christian. I was recently baptized. But I thought it was important because when I really started looking at fathers, and I started understanding the relationship between God, our Father, I think there's something that is tied between them. I think our role as men, as fathers, is much like our earthly responsibility to nurture and take care of their children. In many ways, God is our Heavenly Father, who is available for us to develop a relationship, to help guide us, just like our fathers are supposed to help guide us, just like I guide my son. So I just saw the relationship between the two in many of the same ways where people who are disappointed by their father missing in their life, like I was, turning against God when things aren't going their way. They say, God has let me down, and I don't need him, because he's one big disappointment. I see the same type of behavior between the two. And so I think as God is disappearing from our lives, our fathers are disappearing from our lives, the role of fathers and what it means to be a father in general as a title becomes less and less important.
That's a pretty big hole in people's lives when you think of it that way, both spiritually and not morally, but foundationally. That's a huge hole.
Yeah.
Not just for men, but women as well. It's something that's essential, I think, and that's very interesting. There's so much that I could ask you and go over. Obviously, the book has a lot of information. And again, folks, I do remind you, yes, go buy the book. Go check out the company, Wrong Speak Publications. Whether you're writing a book or whether you want to just read some of the other authors. There's so much we can talk about, and I know there's so little time, and it's a little difficult because we are at a convention, but I would like to, in the future, catch back up with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Follow up on this a little bit. Let me ask you, do you think you're going to have another book that you're going to write?
Yes. I started writing something. I've been too busy, but there's a book that I have in me. It's going to be specifically about family separation, single parenthood, also divorce as well. And it's going to use my story in a much deeper way. I do talk about it in the book, but it's going to be very, very deep and emotional, very specific moments and occurrences that I didn't talk about in the book, and how it impacted me and linked it into the social issues that we're seeing around us. The goal is to write a apolitical, not about race. Anybody can pick it up age range-wise. It's not going to be inappropriate. It's something that people can really take in, and it's, they don't. I think my biggest thing, I didn't want people to be like, is it a black conservative book? Is it this type? Is it a right wing book? It's none of that. It is a human book, because we're dealing with human issues, and we're talking about social problems that exist. And what I'm thinking into is a core problem where nearly a quarter of children in America growing up in separate homes from their parents. That's a major problem. So we're number one in the world. We're not humans right behind us. So I've had people from the UK write copies of my book as well, and they see exactly what is happening. That downward spiral of family separation, how it's impacting our children, the rising rates of crime, especially for Black youth within the UK, especially like a city like London. It looks different, but it's much of the same core.
I have one other question, but before I do that, I do want to ask, for people who want to find out more, obviously you can go Google search Wrong Speak publication, but I don't know why, I get tongue-tied with that, because I keep wanting to say wrong speaking for some reason. Wrong Speak publication. But how would they contact you, whether it's they want to reach you to say, hey, I have a manuscript, you can look at it, or to find out more about you and some of the events you'll do?
If it's more so about publishing, they can go to longspeak.net. We have an email form they can fill out, and we can contact them. We also take submissions for articles published. If someone wants to write an article, they can send it in, and our editors will get back to them. For me, if they want to follow what's going on with me, they can check out my Substack as well. I'm very interactive with the people who comment and talk to them about what's going on. It's AdamBColeman.com. Adam
B as in Bravo, Coleman, okay. And that's Coleman, Coleman, if you didn't notice. Okay.
So those are the best ways to try to reach out. Also, I'm on Twitter. So if anybody's on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people there. So might be the entry is there. Go to X and then go on. On X, is it also Adam B. Coleman?
Actually, it's at wrong_speak.
Wrong_speak. Yes, use the underscore button. With that said, I always like to end every interview with the same thing, which is there an issue, a topic, whatever it may be that you believe is very important to share with the audience today while we have the opportunity, something that I didn't cover or we weren't able to address?
I mean, just in general, I talk broadly about family separation, how it's impacting our society. But I'll just use something very specific because I tweeted about this and got some mostly agreements with some pushback. We have an issue with parents wanting to be their kids' friends.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Oh, I got to be there for. No, you don't.
No, you don't. And I've made the distinction that a friend is a status. You can be friendly with your kids, right? You can be friendly and loving. That's an action, right? That's a verb. But being a friend is a status. If I'm your friend, I don't have authority over you.
No.
We're equals. And the problem is that parents have been lowering themselves to be equals with the kids. But no, you're an authority figure. You have to tell them what to do. Right? Especially if they're small, you have to tell them when you can't touch that. That means you have authority over
It's hot. Don't touch it.
Right.
Yeah.
And, in a loving, obviously, like, it would be in bad faith if people like, well, this abusive work. Obviously, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a normal, loving relationship because most people aren't being physically abused or dealing with overbearing parents like that. We're talking about a loving, normal situation. The parent has to tell their children what to do. But if I lower myself to being a friend and making myself equal, and then when one day they turn 16 and you're like, they won't listen to me, and they keep calling me by my first name, well,
look at
what
how
do
you
you
raise it.
expect?
Yeah. Net result of the process. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I always find that to be a problem. Parents are supposed to be held high, not because they're perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
And no one has the perfect parent. But it is something to accept that, well, one, in your life, you have something to reach. When you become a parent, you can now ascend to that higher level. But also just that due respect. I mean, they brought you into the world. They didn't take you out. It's worth it. So I think that's kind of important.
Yeah.
There was something I was going to say about that. That is a big one. It started with Moesha. First time I remember seeing that was, you remember, well, no, you may be too young. There was a TV show back in the 90s called Moesha.
I remember Moesha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you look younger than me. You look way younger.
I'm about to be 40.
Oh, okay. Still younger, but not quite as young. All right. So the Moesha show, you remember that?
Yeah.
And it was targeted on, in New York, it was on the UPN. So it was alternative secondary TV. And black family, that black girl, and she treated her dad like crap. He was always wrong. He was always the joke. And she was always the one coming up with all the answers. And I remember talking to a couple of my friends at the time, and they had young kid, and I was like, that's a problem. Those kids are seeing that show, and they don't know how to act. Because I tried that in my family, I'd have got smacked.
Right.
And deserved it.
Right.
I'm a different generation. Okay? So I know
And to
people
be
don't.
honest with you, the kids shows, if you watch Disney TV and all that stuff, the adults are idiots.
Yeah.
All of them are idiots or clumsy. No one's ever like, no, go to your room. Like, no one's ever like that. No one's an authority figure. They're all like, I'm wacky and crazy just like my kids. It's very much so that. That's all the content that they take.
And they never show the consequence of what happens to all those Disney teen kid stars. Yeah, go to the Inquirer.
Right, exactly.
Adam, I want to thank you. It's been a great conversation. I think we covered a lot of ground, and I hope people will find out more about you and your company. I look forward to hearing more about that second book, because I'm going to read this one in full, so I also want to read that one too. Maybe we'll do an interview about that, going over some of the details.
For sure.
All right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Keep watching. We're going to be live. Spike Cohen, Maj Toure, Larry Sharp, Justin Amash, maybe. Massey, Thomas Massey, maybe. Might be having interviews with all of them. Keep watching, keep in touch, and everyone, be well.